Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. With the Brave Women at Work podcast, you'll get the resources and tips along with real-world stories and humor to empower and inspire you to take bolder and braver actions in your career and life. Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. Have you ever had a work situation that took you to your knees and required your faith that everything was going to be okay? I absolutely have. In one of my roles, it's kind of like been burned on my brain. You know how you have those? I'm like, mine was probably like 10, well, no, more than that. It's probably 15 to 20 years ago. Wow, I can't believe it's that long. But at that time, my boss in that role, it was one of my first VP roles. He told me that I wasn't right. I'm putting air quotes for our YouTubers, like right fit for the role, and that I was going to have to be on the dreaded performance improvement plan, or PIP for short, for my corporate warriors, warrior women. And it sent me into an undescribable tailspin, like imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, all of the things. And as I was thinking about it, I was typically the person that was leading others to perform, help with improving their performance. I wasn't the employee that was told that my performance wasn't up to par or wasn't meeting expectations. So, huge ego hit, huge spike for my imposter syndrome, huge issue for my confidence. So when my boss told me that news, this may sound a little woo, but it felt like I left my body. Have you ever had one of those situations where you're like detached, like where you're like, it's so devastating to you. It's so scary. It's so shocking that you kind of disassociate. And that's what it felt like. It felt like I was hovering over myself. And the immediate feeling was fear, was like terror, fear. And questions like this started swirling in my head. Am I going to be fired? What do I do next if this doesn't work out? All of those questions and that fear started swirling over my head. I can just describe it like storm clouds. And then after that, I would love for you to think that I settled in, I got calm and centered. I did my meditation and yoga. I prayed, all of those kinds of things. I did none of those things. And the next year was such a mad scramble. That's all I can describe it as, to fit into the mold, just like Gumby. I was like stretching myself and pulling myself, and I was trying to fit into the mold of what my boss at that time wanted me to be, while simultaneously scrambling and looking for a better cultural fit in a new job. And the time was fraught with fear and overworking, overdriving, just like really toxic patterns that I have a tendency to go back to. And the saddest part about it all is that I didn't even see another choice. I didn't see that I could have softened into surrender, a lack of control, and that faith of understanding that things would be okay. So, my guest today on the show, Dr. Shawnte Elbert, she has faced her fair share of career struggles and demons. But unlike me and my position of overdriving at that time, Shawnte learned a concept that I love and I plan to use in the future. And hopefully after today's show, you will too. It's called Inhale Faith and Exhale Fear. And so in today's show, Shawnte gives me a beautiful masterclass in letting go of the need to control and leaning on something so much greater, our faith. So before we get started, let me share a bit more about Shawnte. Dr. Shawnte Elbert is the founder and CEO of Elbert Innovative Solutions. Dr. Shawnte is a nationally recognized leader in public health, health equity, and mental health care innovation. She is the founder and principal consultant of Elbert Innovative Solutions, EIS, advising organizations on equity-driven leadership, workforce development, and systems change. Dr. Elbert is also the regional director and director of training and development at Growth and Empowerment Mental Health Care Healthcare Services, LLC, also named G&E. She oversees comprehensive training for clinical and non-clinical staff and ensures that mental health care services are effective, culturally responsive, and equity centered. She is also a co-founder of Sister Wells, in all caps, counseling, coaching, and consulting, PLLC, along with Dr. Charla Blummel and Dr. Shara Watkins. Sister Wells is a collective of experienced wellness and leadership professionals dedicated to leadership development, holistic wellness, and guiding individuals towards authentic transformation. Rooted in their shared sisterhood and passion for equity-driven change, the practice brings a unique and deeply personal approach to leadership and well-being. Dr. Elbert has worked across healthcare, higher education, and community health sectors to champion policies and practices centered on justice, access, and well-being. She is a sought-after speaker and consultant known for her engaging and transformative approach to tackling complex health and equity issues. This conversation is so juicy. I'm so excited to dive in. But before we do that, just a couple of announcements. If Brave Women at Work, this show has helped you personally or professionally, please be sure to share it with a friend, a family member, or a colleague. And as you know, the ratings and reviews, they matter. I wish they didn't, but they do. And they help the show continue to get in the hands of more women. We've gone up to 39 countries shared across the world, which is so humbling and awe-inspiring. And I just can't believe it. It's just amazing. So for everyone that's passed it all over the world, I thank you so much. Continue to do so. And let's crack 40 countries, shall we? If you haven't yet downloaded one of my freebies from my website, check them out at bravewomenatwork.com. The 3 that are out there today are 24 career and leadership affirmations, 5 ways to managing your imposter syndrome, and probably our most popular, getting paid 10 negotiation tips. One final announcement. We have a new Brave Women at Work book. The subtitle is called Lessons in Letting Go. So again, Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go. It is the 4th, I'm trying to count here. We're getting like a many Brave Women at Work anthology books in our family. This is our 4th women's anthology. Just launched this week on the 24th of June. And it's now out in hardcover and ebook, but get this beautiful book in your hands. I wish I had one to show you right here for my YouTube folks, but it is this beautiful, rich green. It's heart-centered. It's beautiful. The cover is beautiful. The stories are even better. So purchase your copy today. You can find it on Amazon. Also, we have a link to one of our distributors called Porchlight. So let's party, shall we? This is so amazing. Again, thank you for helping us build our community. Thank you for buying these books because they're helping women do the thing that I wanted them to do when I started this at Brave Women at Work. They're taking bolder and braver action in their lives and their career. So thank you so much. Okay, let's welcome Dr. Shawnte to the show. Well, good morning, Shawnte. Welcome to Brave Women at Work. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jen?
I am so good. If you are not seeing Shawnte's office, she has this gorgeous regal photo or kind of art behind her, and I can just tell she's ready. Her energy's ready to roll. So it's so wonderful to have you here today to talk about our book, Brave Woman at Work, Lessons in Letting Go. It is like the little engine that could, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's good to be on the first hurdle of the digital launch. And so I'm like, now let's get ready to go for the hardcover. So I'm excited.
Yes. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit in our community of Brave Women at Work? Tell us a little bit about you and your background story and what you've been cooking and what you've been doing lately.
Absolutely. So I always want to pay homage to my home state of North Carolina. Even though I'm here in the Midwest, I always like to remind people I come from a state with real sweet tea. Um, so I was born there. My mom had me and my twin sister at 18. So I'm an identical twin.
Wow.
And so if people start to Google me after this, about a quarter of those pictures aren't me. They're my twin sister, Dr. Shara Watkins. But my journey has been rooted in the helping field. My mom's a nurse, my granny was a nurse, and I had a whole host of aunts and cousins who were teachers. And so I grew up in that education was our way of getting beyond our circumstances and growing up low income. And so for for high school and going to college, it was a non-negotiable in our family. We were going to college, no questions asked, but it's also was our equalizer. As my granny used to say, it's the one thing people can't take away from you. So I worked in higher education for 18 years as a health educator, moving up to a director over a student wellness health promotion office. And then my dream position was to be over all the student facing health and wellness offices like the counseling center on campus, the student health center, disability, all those offices that were for student support and student success. I had a chance to be over those at two universities. And so that was my dream until at my last institution, I was asked to resign for no cause. And I had to make a huge pivot. And so I pivoted over to the health department as their first chief health equity officer. Wasn't quite happy, but I wanted to make sure I can still support my family. And a month out from hitting my 1 year anniversary and not being on the probationary status, same thing happened again. And so I was just
Hmm.
devastated, Jen. I two jobs that I loved and I dreamed of, um, came to fruition. I prayed for these opportunities, and both opportunities led me back to my knees. And so, in the midst of that, I really had to reconnect and figure out what was going to be my new purpose and calling because I felt like everything had been lost. And initially, I felt like it was taken away from me. And so, in the midst of that, in 2017, prior, we created Sister Wells Counseling, Coaching, and Consulting
Mm-hmm.
with my twin sister, Sheree, and Dr. Charlotte Bumel. And we really wanted to create something that was unique, that was culturally responsive around therapy, coaching, and consulting, specifically for women of color. And we modeled it after the woman at the well who went in the heat of the day, despite not being asked to come out and show her face in those spaces to go get what she needs. So drawing from the will what she needed. And so we created that after doing a presentation and so many people asking us, are we a organization? Do we have a business? And so we created it in 2017. It's been thriving. My sister is the CEO of Sister Wells and leads us in our work there. And it's been a great run and we're still doing well with our business. And I created EIS, Elbert Innovative Solutions, about a month after I resigned last year from the health department, because my husband pushed me. He was like, "You said you wanted to consult. You said you wanted to do this work on your own terms. Do it." And so he paid for the LLC. And then I started to build it, and it has grown tremendously as far as, with grant writing and speaking, the blog, contracts. Everything came so quickly. I haven't even finished my website. So that's where I'm at. Being able to serve. I have a couple of clients who I'm doing executive coaching with and wellness coaching, and so it's a dream that I thought I would use in retirement, but I'm using it as my day to day.
So I'm so privileged. I just feel so excited to hear the story because we haven't had a lot of time. We've been working on the book. I haven't heard as much about like where you come from, and I just love this story. And I will say, I hope your mom is still with us because wow, right? Two doctors, like
Yes,
not just one woman that's like a
yes,
daughter, like two doctors.
yes, yes. She
I
likes to
mean,
brag.
come on. Let's, like raise the roof for, your mom, right? Like
Yes,
mama raised you guys right, right? That like you guys
yes.
are doctors, you're successful, you're flourishing, you're thriving, and that's just amazing. And I'm also just so touched by the power of your community that your husband really supported you in this transition and didn't say, out of scarcity, say, hey, go find another role at, in an academic situation. You could do that, but like, why not do what you want to do now, right? Why like wait until retirement? So I applaud the community that is supporting you and really cheering you on.
He always says he's my biggest fan, and he is. And so, having someone who can see the vision, from my husband to my mentors, has been pivotal. You got to have people who can see the vision sometimes well before you can see it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I never asked you, so I typically know like the lineage of how you got connected to our community, and I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know. So I put in my questions and I'm like, Shawnte, like, what's up? Like, how did you get introduced to like our project? So tell me.
Oh my goodness. Sheila Hicks Burkhalter
Okay. Yes.
is my
Yes.
mentor, prayer partner. And so literally that year that I was leading up to resigning from the last institution when I was at AVP, I was one of the keynote speakers for our big conference, NASPA. It was in Seattle. And so a lot had been going on in higher ed. We had just had quite a few Black women who passed away while at work, and one
Oh,
who had taken her life. And so a lot had been going on. And so they asked us to come together. So me, my sister, and others pulled together a call to action where we created a safe space at the conference. We had over 200 women in this massive ballroom. And so my sister started off with some grounding and tapping, the therapist in her. And
yeah.
then we broke up into about 5 groups and just did small group conversations. It was so powerful, Jen. And right afterwards, Sheila was talking to a couple of folks, and I went up to her and she asked me, "How am I doing?" Her husband was on the knowledge community with me, and he initially had introduced me years ago to his wife. And she said, "How's everything?" And I literally just started crying, and I said, "I am looking for a job. She's trying to get me out. I don't know what I'm gonna do." And she said, "You need to tell your story." And I said, "How?" I don't want to get blackballed. She said, "Tell your story." And she told me about her journey in writing for the Brave Women at Work, sent me the book. I read it, weeked, and then it came time for people to nominate, and she nominated me. And I was like, "Hey, a lot has changed since we talked. I'm unemployed now. It's about a year
Yeah.
away." And she said, "I got you." She covered my costs, and that's how it started.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's so awesome. That is so, so cool. I love, so can I back up because I want to give some credit and some magic and some just love and thank you, to Shigs. So Sheila Higgs Burkhalter. Uh do you know how I got connected to her? Can I tell you?
No,
Yeah.
I don't. I just know that she is the great connector, the great qualifier. I mean, to see her work a room is just amazing to see.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, so this is just shows you and everybody listening, like we're going to go to the spiritual today. We're going to go to like, if God, the universe, whatever you believe in, right?
Mhm.
So I believe in God, right? And I think this was God and divine timing and like just the way this happened. So I will back up just for a second. And I was like meeting people on my podcast, Brave Women at Work. Obviously, we're recording it today. And I had met Hope Mueller, who is obviously my colleague, my business partner, my friend, and the owner of Hunter Street Press. And so someone introduced me. Well, that someone was Natalie Benamou, who's been in another book, but she introduced me to Hope. I had Hope on my podcast, and then the rest is history. So I asked Hope to write books, and like here we are. Like we're going to be starting our fifth cohort in August of 2025. And so exciting. And so Hope looks at me and I look at her, and we had this thing called naive joy. And we're like, where are we getting people? And everyone was like, you're going to do what? Like, you're going to write books? And I was like, yeah, we're going to write books. And so I went to my coaching alma mater, IPAC, which is the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. And I didn't know that Shigs actually was also a graduate from IPAC. And I put out an announcement on the page. And I don't think that was allowed. So I apologize to them because they may have considered it soliciting. But I was like, hey, I'm doing this book. I'm doing this book on women. I'm going to be running this webinar. Anyone who wants to come, come. And she
Mhm.
came. And she was on that webinar completely randomly, completely random.
Wow.
And she didn't know me and I didn't know her. And I just spoke from the heart and said, I think there's a message here. I think there's a way for us to authorship together. I think there's a way out for us to build community. And she decided from some random lady in me to partner with me and with Hope. And there you go. That's how that happened.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I'm
Divine.
not in higher ed. That's
Divine.
not my field.
Right, right. And
So
I've heard that she's nominated quite a few people. I think she may be at the top of the list of most people nominated in
I think so. Yeah. And you know what? And yes, so I am forever indebted to her and to her work
mhm,
and, just amazing. So thank you so much for being part of this project, I guess, and part of our community. I really appreciate you.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we know how you connected with us now. We know a little
Mhm,
bit about your background story. So what about this idea of letting go? What sparked your interest, right? You talked to Shigs. You could have said it's not the right time.
mhm.
Why this one? Did you say, yeah, I got to do this?
Again, going back to people seeing things well before you see it, especially when you're kind of going through the experience or the wilderness experience. And so her saying, "Hey, I need you to write this. This is going to be part of you." She didn't say letting go, but she said navigating your next. And so I think for
Yeah.
me, I just trusted her. Without a doubt, I said, well, she has to be able to see something. Something's been given to her on why I need to do this. And it was a necessary part of my journey. It was what I needed to actually do what I put in the book, the inhale faith, exhale fear, still being afraid and embarrassed about what had just happened with two jobs at the top of my career. And she was like, that can't define you. You can't let that
Oh,
define you.
so
You
good.
have to release it. And so I'm grateful for her listening to the spirit and saying, hey, write this. This is going to be more helpful, not just for you, but if you share from a place of authenticity, you will also help others find their way of releasing, letting go, and what wholeness will look like from them after they've done their work. And so that's what it did for me. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but as I wrote and got feedback about being more transparent in the journey and not being afraid, it was exactly what I needed. Lots of tears as I wrote.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that, especially with this group, like the idea of letting go and surrender really brought something out, something special in this particular author cohort. So you already shared the chapter title, Inhale Faith, Exhale Fear. And when like first read your chapter title, I literally, Shawnte, I was like, I took a deeper breath. Like I just like literally it was like instructional. Like it was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm going to inhale faith and I'm going to exhale fear. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I just wanted to know how it came about because I don't know if this is like a life mantra for you or if this just came out in the writing. So tell me about that.
It's actually both. And again, that kind of the divine purpose. So I was working at UNC Charlotte, and my good friend Jenny was pregnant and had horrible morning sickness, but she had signed up for a women's symposium that was at the theater. And so she's like, I don't want to waste the ticket. Can you go? I was like, yeah, get out the office, go to a symposium.
Yeah.
It was absolutely phenomenal. But the closing speaker was a woman who was in the C-suite at a Fortune 500 company. And at the end, she took some questions, and I was like, "Oh, what I want to ask?" But somebody asked her, "How do you navigate spaces when you're the only one, when your voice is diminished, you're overlooked, or your ideas are taken and given as somebody else's?" And she said it has been times where she has left meetings, went to her office and cried. And she said, but I've learned to inhale faith and exhale fear. And I was sitting all the way in the back because I got there late, and the tears just start coming down my face to hear another woman say that yes, she was fearful, yes, it hurt, but she found a way to still ground herself and move forward. And so I've taken that mantra as when I'm in different seasons and in different situations, personally and professionally, inhale faith, exhale fear, because inhaling is a verb, it's an action that we can
Mm-hmm.
take. It shows us that we still have life. We still have an opportunity to do something different. And so it was a way for me to realize that I can release something that I'm not meant to hold on to, and it is a way that I consistently ground myself. And so it has been more of a more of a spiritual rhythm, a mantra that I take on. It's a practice that I embody, especially as someone who has anxiety. So I literally have to take that deep breath. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? That's my twin coming out, the therapist, and really grounding myself And so listening to my voice, listening to my breath, and really trying to find that rhythm. And for me, is the inhaling the faith part is where I get to center myself in what I know to be true. The exhaling the fear part comes in where I release what I can't control and more so what I'm not meant to keep carrying. And so this mantra has become part of my movement of it's lots of things that will happen that I have no control over. Some things I feel not fair, but it has become a necessary part of my purpose and my journey.
Oh, that is so good. And I like this as a practice. A lot of women listening to this podcast, like me, I mean, was born out of my own struggle, my own burnout, is like perfection. Like, what happened to you? I haven't had a situation where I've been asked to leave a job. I was close though. And Shawnte, all the things I made it mean about me, that I was a failure, that I couldn't do it, that I was an imposter, that I like fill in all the gaps of like the Mad Libs, negative Mad Libs story, right? Like all of that. I did that to myself for a very long time. And so I was just wondering if this mantra helped you kind of bridge that gap faster, or if you too had like that period where it was you were really rough on yourself.
Oh, absolutely, really rough on myself. Um, because again, I'm the planner, I'm type A. So when they started creating AVP positions, which is a brand new role in higher ed, usually you had like the dean of students. So our AVP of health and wellness or health and well-being was completely new. I got to see that position be created when I was just becoming a director over an office. And so I was like, hashtag goals. And so I started writing my goal sheet, changing. I wanted to be a director by 40. I became a director at 32. So I'm the person that
Wow.
writes the list. And so going for that position as a non-clinician, as a person with a prevention background was going to be a challenge. I was the first African-American to get that role with a non-clinical background. So no nurse or doctor, no therapist, I'm completely prevention. And so to be the first, it was a breath of fresh air. And for me, it felt like I was finally getting to that place where the hard work wasn't unnoticed. I always say I applied for an interview for every job I ever gotten. I never was shoulder tapped or moved. And so to get to that place where I'm now being picked on and targeted, I mean, you read about it, you hear
Yeah.
about it, but to experience it, and I tried to shrink so that way I couldn't be on the radar anymore. I was told to stop speaking, and I was just like, okay, just be quiet, Shawnte, stay in your space, and maybe that will be enough. But when the gift makes room for you, and your name is put into spaces by your allies and your sponsors and your mentors, you can't decrease when they are outside advocating for you. And so it became I became a target and I had nobody to help and support. I didn't want my team to know. And so going through that and then having to resign, my husband got in the hospital 2 weeks later. I was
Oh,
interviewing for jobs. We don't have any immediate family here in Columbus. And so it was probably the hardest experience I went through. And so I wanted to move my interview. I was interviewing for a VP position, and my husband was like, no. And so one of my first interns when I started my career, stayed in Cincinnati. He came down and stayed with my husband until he got out the hospital. I literally got on the plane and took off to Nebraska for an interview. Hadn't finished my PowerPoint presentation. My mentor and my sister called when I was at the airport. They was like, send us the prompt, send us what you got so far. I was like, I just got my notes. I haven't put it in a PowerPoint slide. By the time I landed and got to the hotel, the layout was done. So all I had to do was design it to make it feel like me. They took my notes and they made it look pretty.
wow.
And I just sat there and wept, and it reminded me of what my sister talked about when my munchkin was in NICU is sometimes people have to carry you when you can't do the work yourself. They would stand in the gap with you. They would carry the load with you and for you. And for me, being in that dark space and seeing all those ants, automatic negative thoughts, that was me. I said everything. It was doomsday in my mind. But then at the same time, I had that twin sister who was like, we came in this world together. We ain't leaving no time soon. Do not make me come from Salt Lake City. And so having that mantra, and even then after the second job as chief health equity officer, I had promised myself, and I said, God, if you find a way for me to get a job, I promise I will never go back to this space. So when it happened again, I gave myself 24 hours and I was like, now bump it, what are we gonna do next? What I didn't expect was that every job I applied for was a no. And so in the midst of that, I got to really tap in and rely on what was not my plan and lean into what God had in store for me. And so, as you know, as they say, not my will but yours. And so, I really had to focus on. I got to accomplish everything I wanted. I had interviewed for a president job. I had interviewed for a VP job, which was my goal. I didn't get it, but I got to experience it. So now, what are you asking me to do? That's not of my own accord, but you're asking me to step out on what it means to walk by faith, not by sight. And so that's where I'm at now, starting EIS, expanding Sister Wells, and then I start school in August at Methodist Theological Seminary in public theology. That was not on my bingo card. None of this was, was on
Wait, so
my
you're
bingo
going for
card.
theology?
Yes, a master's in theology. And that was not my plan. My cousin introduced me to the dean, and I had a chance to talk with her, and I was like, hey, I'm unemployed. Like I don't have my unemployment was denied. She was like, okay. She said, so you're asking about how you're going to pay for something. She said, do you not trust God? And I was like, well, yes, ma'am. And so I applied, and my mentors were having a tough time getting the reference letter. So they finally got me in first of this year. I got my acceptance letter and a full scholarship to start school. And
Wow.
so, again, to inhale faith and to exhale fear of, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I believe it is. And that's trying to live this thing out. When I say it's a verb, it's a verb.
It is a verb. Oh my word. This is like so exciting to hear. So let's apply inhale faith and exhale fear now. So
Mm-hmm.
there are women, there are people listening to this podcast that are going through that dark night of the soul or that like valley right in their careers. And especially in today's world, like we're you know, recording in a tough time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so there are people getting laid off. There are people losing jobs. There are people quitting jobs. There are people that their plan is not their plan. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyone who reads your chapter, what do you hope they take away? And I guess the bigger question is how can they apply inhale
Mm-hmm.
faith, exhale fear, right? So, I want your first is what are the big lessons, right? And then for anyone that's facing this, because there's tons of people facing this right now, not maybe exactly, but they're similar. How
Mm-hmm.
can they apply this mantra for themselves?
I think the biggest thing I had to learn was you're not defined by your title
Mm,
or the pain you've endured. I let that kind of be my guide for such a long time. Of I no longer had the title. I worked so hard. What do I say to people when they ask the question of why I'm no longer in this role? Um, and that the other thing I learned is that bravery for me hasn't always been loud. It has been sometimes in those quiet moments of letting go where I found who I am and who I'm being called to be, and realizing that some things, identities, titles, positions, I've actually outgrown and
mm,
already accomplished everything that I was tasked to do. And so what I'm hoping from this chapter that I'm giving them really good practical tools and strategies on how to navigate life. As I always say, life is gonna life. And so what will you do in the
hmm
meantime? And we always talk about in Sister Wills building your toolkit or your gym bag, whatever. And going in and adding multiple strategies and multiple interventions into your toolkit. And for me, that grounding, that breathing, that inhaling faith is a part of that toolkit. And I think a lot of times we forgot that during COVID, we learned a lot of things that we used to cope no longer worked or served us. And we had to
hmm
get something else in the bag. And so I'm hoping that this can be another tool for many of the readers and listeners that this can work. And that, again, I'm going to keep emphasizing that this is a verb. This is a deliberate action that you have to choose to take, especially when things that you used to do are no longer serving you or providing the release that you need. And so I'm hoping that they realize that life is going to happen, but this is not a passive experience, but a really great moment to be active and intentional in their process of letting go. And so for me, it's been a journey of figuring out what that looks like for me. But every time I get a chance to breathe or put my hand over my heart and just feel that inhale and that exhale, it's a reminder that I still got another day to do something to make it better, to impact society, to hopefully make it better for the person coming behind me.
That is so beautiful. There was a quote that I shared on my social media. I was prepping for multiple podcasts last week, and this particular show inspired me to pull this quote. So I want to read this quote. So it's stop shrinking to fit places you've outgrown.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it's her name is Faraya. I'm hoping I'm saying that correct, Joyce, but stop shrinking to fit places you've outgrown. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that we often will like kind of, like as it's springtime, like, like you think of the metaphor of like plants, right? Like, so if you buy a plant at the store and it comes in its plastic pot,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you've got to like repot it, or you have to like move a
Mm-hmm.
plant because it keeps growing. But we, out of that comfort zone, will stay in that pot, right? Stay in that original pot because we're so scared to move on because it's comfortable, and it's because what people know us for, whether it's a title or a
Mm-hmm.
role or whatever. And I think part of the reason that this was happening to you, this is my perspective, would love yours, is that God himself was saying, this isn't it. Like, this isn't it. Like, not this one, not this one, not this one. And then you look for
Mm-hmm.
jobs, and then it was like, why are all these doors closing?
Yep.
I think the thing
Yep.
that I would love for listeners to hear is you didn't I mean, yes, you went through it. So thank you for being vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and sharing. Like, I was tough on myself. I probably felt imposter syndrome. I felt grief. Like, I went through all the things, right? You weren't otherworldly, like you experienced those things like most people would, but you decided to invoke the verb of inhale faith and exhale fear. So how can listeners do that, right? So like, was there just a decision you made at one
Mm-hmm.
point where you were just like, I'm sick of like feeling bad. I'm sick of feeling this way. Like, what was that moment where you're like, I have to invoke the verb. I got to do something.
You said it at the beginning of the podcast, Jen. You said surrender.
Yes.
And I remember, in college when I got saved for myself, not what I did growing up, but really understood what it meant to go to the altar and put my hands up, and say, wherever you want me to do, wherever you want me to go. And so for me, going through this was a reminder of, are you going to fully surrender or try to take on this thing by yourself? And that's for me has been this journey, and acknowledging. Um, I thought that when I got the job at the health department, it just didn't feel right, that I wasn't being grateful for God given provision,
Mm.
because I had a job. And my oldest son, came to visit with my youngest son, and he said, "Mommy, this is your office." I was like, "Yeah." I said, "My new furniture is coming soon. It's on the way." He said, "This is not you." Now, at that
Oh,
moment,
he
I had
said as a child, like
he,
you're old. He's
yes,
older.
yes,
Yeah, but still.
yes. He
Yeah.
at that time he was 11, about to turn 12, and so
Wow.
I hadn't said it to anybody, that I felt like, I wouldn't say the job was beneath me, but beneath the gift, and the talent that I could bring. And so I felt like I was shrinking to be in that space. But what that job tasked me to do was to tap back into what ministry would look like at a different level. I had some staff members going through some tough situations. I had a couple staff members who came to me and said, "How do you do this? You openly talk about your faith, and we get to watch you walk in a way that we've never seen before." And so what I realized is that by shrinking at the other university, but not shrinking at the health department, I got to be that light in dark spaces. I got to show what it means to minister, openly and authentically. And it was probably the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, to be at a place and find myself when staff say, "Hey, Dr. E, can you pray for me? I got a lot going on." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Never in my life had I moved in that way. And so when I was looking for the program and my cousin talked about the public theology, he was like, "That's what you've been doing this past year." And so for me, it was a connection to where I was going. Um,
Wow.
and that again, going back to the scripture, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard all the ways and plans God has for you. I didn't imagine this, but to now be on the other side and living it, I now know that that wilderness was necessary for me to listen and to glean and to understand what it meant to be called for something higher than what I feel I need to do. And it's been a blessing to be on this side and to move from a place of I wasn't let go. I was released to go into where I was meant to. I was released to go into where I was called to be, and that has been the journey of I will no
Mm,
longer sit in this bed and cry all day. I will not let my kids watch me just shrink when there's so much more out here. And so it's been a journey. So when people say, um, it looks like I just pivoted really fast. No, no, it's going to the doctors, it's talking to the therapist, it's talking about, hey, do I need to do a low dose for anxiety and depression? It is all those things, working every tool available to me and finding a way to figure out what works for me. And everybody's way of doing and being is different, but for me, it has been pivotal to really understand that when people watch me and hear me, it can be a motivation for them to do the work, and to release themselves from places that no longer serve them. So it's been a beautiful experience, and I'm grateful that I've been called into this space.
mm. So I want to call something out you said. So for any of those folks that have self-judgment about being let go, I love how
Mm-hmm.
you re-qualified it to being released into probably what you needed to be doing, right? So you released in that reframe, self-judgment. They let me go, therefore I'm a failure, right? Versus I was
Mm-hmm.
thankfully released so that I can go and unleash my gift into the world, right? So there are nuances to the language, but this is why language is so beautiful, because it can change how we feel in a moment. And so I just wanted folks, if you are in this situation of, I'm going to use the word wilderness, to really be
Mm-hmm.
mindful of your language to yourself and how you explain to others your situation, because I think it has a direct correlation in how we feel. What do you think, Shawnte?
Absolutely, absolutely. As my mother-in-law said, speak life. And I had to be mindful of how I described those situations that I thought were tearing me down, but actually were building me up to something bigger and better. And so words have power, and I had to be mindful of how I described that situation. Yes, I was forced to resign, but would I have done that in my own on my own? As a first generation person, as a who grew up low income, would I have willingly walked away with no job in hand? No, no, I wouldn't have. Scariest thing ever. But to really understand that I did the things that made me fear what was next. And I'm okay. We're okay. It is interesting for, when people say, all you see is the other side of people, or they say the glow up. They don't understand the journey, and they definitely don't understand the wilderness. And oftentimes in that wilderness, that's when God is right there. That's when you get to hear, if you choose to, what's meant for you to hear. And for me, I chose to embrace this second time around. What am I being called to do? Let me make sure I'm listening. And I just asked for that. I was like, make it plain, burn the bush, send the ram. I don't want to mess up this time around. What do you want me to do, Jesus? So for me, it was just being very plain. And as I've learned, I'm meant to go into spaces and disrupt, and to show what ethics looks like from a place of wholeness, and to not have to shrink others so you can elevate yourself. And so it's been beautiful to be able to do that work, from coaching to consulting and grant writing. It's I get to do it in so many different ways. I'm not now limited because somebody wants me to not feel like they are being outshined by me. So it's a good place for me to finally be and to thrive.
Oh, that is so good. So I know that this is a life mantra, so I don't have to ask you, are you continuing to use inhale faith, exhale fear? I know you're using it. But in this new space, right, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, right? It is, and you have two businesses, one with your twin sister and then one on your own. How have you been leveraging it now in this? What I'll say I think it's a new season, right? You're turning the corner. You've already turned the corner. So how are you using this concept now in your work?
I use it whether I'm speaking, Dr. E speaks and doing keynotes.
Hmm.
Anytime I go into space, I'm always in prayer of what do you need me to say? I know what they hired me to say, but what do you need me to say in these spaces? I'm also able to use this as I'm being guided to which contracts to say yes to, which ones to say no. And
Mm.
so it's been really interesting. And even when it comes to some coaching clients, that meet and greet free sales for both. It's a two-way street to for us to figure out if this is going to be mutually beneficial. And so I'm using all those things to really tap in to the gift as I no longer shrink in those spaces. And so it's been really pivotal for me to approach each opportunity with clarity and confidence because I am trusting in my purpose and the impact of this work versus trying to make sure I don't make somebody else feel insecure because they haven't done their work or they feel like I may be coming for their job. And so now that I'm in this space as an entrepreneur, it's been interesting, Jen. I had a couple of people reach out and say, "Hey, I would love for you to coach me as a business owner." What? I haven't hit a year by myself yet, and so how do I coach somebody? I'm still learning. I'm still working on becoming certified as a women's owned business, a minority owned business. I'm still working through all those processes now. But at the other end of it, I'm also seeing how I'm glad that I took the step because I've been able to see through dividends and through being able to hire a team. I mean, I've hired folks to work for me in my first year, and a lot of people
Wow.
can't say that. I've been able to replicate my salary in one contract, and so when I talk about walking by faith and really working this thing out, yet will I trust you. And so for me, it has been a beautiful journey. Still scary as I'll get out. Um, but I'm grateful. The contracts come, the opportunities to speak are coming, the grant writing opportunities are coming, and I just finished my landing page on Canva. I'm getting a website built. Like all those things haven't been done yet. And again, I've already hired a team to work with me. So for me, I'm grateful, and I'm hopeful that people who listen and read know that I am trying to give you a visual insight of what's possible if you just trust and believe in yourself and let go.
So another question, let's talk about the opposite because we most of the people listening are in corporate, right? Maybe they have a side hustle,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like me, you're full time, right, with yours.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes with like owning a business or, running a project or, things don't go that way, right? So like there might be dry seasons. So I'm so thankful that for you it's not the case. Almost like it sounds like you're kind of like, okay, everybody, like calm down a little. Like I need to like kind of wade into the water. Like you guys are asking me to dive in. So what would you do if you and your business you do have, and I'm not wishing on this, like I'm knocking on all
Mm-hmm.
the woods that never happens, right? But like that you do have a drier season. How would you leverage this? Would you leverage this mantra then?
I have to quote my baby cousin, Reverend Teddy Reeves. When I was going through the interview process for the health department, I interviewed and came back and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna have to take a significant pay cut, and it looks like this may be my only job offer." And he was like, "Okay, is the job okay? Is it something you can do?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And he said, "Well," and I'm in a car, I'm crying, sitting outside the building where there was my office, and he asked me two questions, Jan. He says, "Okay, well, we know you'll accept the job when you get it, but in the midst of that, even if you don't get the job, do you think?" He said, "No." He said, "Has God ever failed you?" And I was like, "No." He said, "Second question, and I'm gonna hang up. Do you think He's about to start now?" And
Wow.
that is why, if I experience another dry season or wilderness, I'm not afraid. Flesh wise, probably, spiritually wise, I'm not, because if you can carry me and my husband and both of us are unemployed for about 3, 4 months, no unemployment, and we are still in our house, we haven't lacked anything. I can trust you in any other season coming my way. Um, and that's
Yeah.
where I'm at. I have too many receipts. So this, I got to bring in my twin sister when she's regrounding her patients or her clients of saying, walk me through all the examples of what failure has looked like and how you haven't overcome. That sheet usually is blank. I don't have any receipts that I haven't overcome any obstacle or, for me, trauma that I've experienced. I have. I just have to tap back into what I know to be true. This is a season, and it's not the end.
Oh, so good. Wow, the wisdom that pours right out. I'm just like, I can't wait to stay in touch. So after you get, so is it going to be a PhD or a master's? What is it going to be in?
Another master's degree. So yeah, a master's in public theology. I'm going
Oh,
starting part-time. We'll see if I go full-time, but I'm excited. I haven't sat in a class as a non-faculty person in years. And so it's going to be interesting to be back as a student, but I'm excited. Um, and as I told my advisor, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I feel like I've already kind of been tiptoed into the purpose. I'm excited to see what this looks like.
oh, so good. So let's recap on Sister Wells and Elbert Innovative Solutions, right? So give us a summary of the services you provide. So if someone needs support, we're going to put all the links in the show notes. So tell us about both businesses.
So, Sister Wells, our first baby, is based around our culturally responsive therapy, coaching, and consulting, really grounding in those 9 dimensions of wellness from physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual. So, we're looking at the whole person through Sister Wells. And more so, we are looking at how we want to inspire and create spaces around people to be seen, healed, and heard. And so, that
Mhm.
is the mantra of Sister Wells. And so, a lot of our work has gone around gone to support historically underserved, marginalized populations. We've worked with corporations in their ERGs, done some training around wellness and wholeness, DEI, health equity. So Sister Wells is that all-encompassing entity around what it looks like to do wellness. Versus for EIS, similar components to some degree, but I'm really tapping into how I've grounded my work around leadership and building cultures of care and belongingness from a way of wholeness. And so a lot of times as leaders, we really thrive on busy and productive being the end goal versus how do we create a safe, inclusive space where your team can thrive, is psychologically safe. And so I really look at organizational capacity building, strategic management, change management. So I've done a lot of that with some of the organizations I'm working with, some of the nonprofits, grant writing, and then I end up going into looking at structures. Once I'm grant writing and I'm trying to get information, it's been easy to say, hey, I've also noticed these things when I'm trying to write this grant. And so having that insight and using everything I've been able to gather over the past 20 years has been informative. And so I've been able to use that for EIS in a very different way, really honing in on what that leadership looks like. And also with EIS, I get to build that spiritual grounding that I didn't tap into with with the sister wells. And so the other part of EIS is what it looks like to do work from a place of spirituality and purpose. And so I'm excited to see what that looks like. I'm building it out. And, when I built it out, I was like, I'm already doing this. So now I need to put a name behind it. And so I'm excited to roll out the website. And the other part of EIS that I'm so excited about is the hub. Over the past 20 years, I've been able to build tables for others to come. And a lot of times when you are working on projects, I find myself having to call other experts in to, tap into their knowledge. And so I've created the hub, which is harnessing unified brilliance, where organizations can tap into me in my circle and get an interdisciplinary approach to problem solving versus having to hire multiple people. You get to bring in a team of people from the hub to do a specialized project or task where we are
Mm.
consistently coming from a place of interdisciplinary work, looking up and downstream. And so I've done that my entire career, and I finally figured out how I want to approach it in my work. And so that is all part of what EIS will be doing and has been doing. I just didn't have a name to it. And so really, really excited as the landing page is done, and I'll share that link with you. And I'm getting a website built out right now. So super, super excited for that to launch very soon.
Oh, so cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes. I've also mentioned Shigs. We'll put her Shigsby coaching. We'll put all the links for all of our community that we've mentioned today because we've mentioned some amazing women on this call. So all of that'll be there. So Shawnte, what do you believe are 1 to 2 ways that women can be braver at work?
You mentioned it, Jan. Speak truth to yourself first.
Mm,
You have to pour back into yourself. And bravery starts with your own self honesty, and your own self concept, and really ask yourself, is this still serving me or helping me? And I think that's the toughest question. We often don't ask ourselves because we want to give and help others. Oh, I can't leave my team. Oh, my staff. No, is this still serving you? The other thing is setting your boundaries honors who you are and your capacity. I am a natural giver, and there are people who come into my life who are natural takers. And so, one of the things I always say is your no is just as powerful as your yes.
mm,
Both are necessary. And with that, I've been able to really redefine my power and what it means to be brave in my nurturing, but not to be brave in my nurturing and not just in my producing. Um,
mm.
and that has been a big part of navigating. And I'm hoping that those who read the entire book, my chapter, are tapping into those key components I just mentioned.
Okay, so there was another truth bomb I have to underline there. So, being brave in your nurturing, not just your producing. Like I just like got like hit with like an arrow, like, oh, you better listen to that one. Because I think that I often am like, okay, produce, produce, produce. That's how we're
Mm-hmm.
like bred, right?
Yep.
Especially our type A ambitious women. It's like, what have you produced today? Right. And,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of nurturing, like either self nurturing or nurturing others with a boundary, right? So that you're not
Yes.
depleted because women, all we do, like, we're just like tap into me, right? Like just tap the energy pool, right? And then like
Yep.
we're done, right? So I
And
really,
depleted from
really
a
like that.
place of, I was watching a beautiful speaker on Instagram, and she said, we have to pour from our overflow, not from our cup. And
Mm.
that means you only get the extra I have. You don't get to pull from my cup because that means if you're not going to put into the cup, I'm having to find ways to refill. And it's harder to refill once I'm pulling from my cup. So pouring from my overflow. That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to listen to this one again and like start like taking some notes. Okay, so yeah, this has been so awesome. So how can women find you? We're gonna have all the links, but just give us kind of like where the main areas are and how they can connect with you and your work online.
So the website, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. Dr. E Speaks is the blog. Shawnte Elbert also on LinkedIn, and then we have our Facebook that we just created for EIS. And Sister Wells is everywhere, so sisterwells.org, Wells WELLS, and then we have LinkedIn and we have a Facebook for Sister Wells and Instagram. So it's easy to find us. There's not that many twins out here doing health and wellness work, especially identical twins. So it will refer to both. If you find us on Sister Wells, you'll find me for EIS and vice versa.
Okay. Well, Shawnte, it has been so fun. Just eye-opening to hear more of your story, the depth of your story, the richness of your story, and the work you're doing. And I can't wait for us to stay in community. I feel so blessed to have met you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, Jan. Um, I am grateful for you all's vision to give space for women like me to be able to share our story.
Well, that's a wrap on my discussion with Shawnte today. I hope you found our conversation both valuable and inspiring. As a reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The show is also available on any other podcast platform you enjoy. Until next time, show up, inhale faith, exhale fear, and be brave.